Hi class. Today we're going to be doing things a little bit differently than we typically do. I've set up what's called station training. And so throughout the room we're going to have three different stations. I'm going to divide you up into groups, and I'll go into more detail about this in just a few minutes. But at each station you're going to address a topic that you would be learning. So instead of you just sitting there and hearing a lecture today about the American Revolution, you're actually going to be discovering your own information. You're going to be finding this information and learning and teaching each other. Okay, and then we're going to come together and see what all we've learned. So it's going to allow you to move around the classroom a little more, get a little more active, and actually it should be really fun. But before we jump into today's lesson, I just want to briefly talk about some of the main themes from yesterday's lecture. So we're talking about the American Revolution, and we're in the early stages of the war. So one of the main themes that I had you learn about was the fact that this was not a popular war. Okay, a lot of times when people think about the American Revolution, they just assume that it was the colonists versus the oppressive British. Well, that wasn't necessarily the case. In reality, only about 40% of the colonists supported the American cause. About 20% supported the Loyalists, where they actually supported or even fought for the British, and then another 40% didn't support any side at all. So this was not a popular war. Another thing we talked about, real briefly, was the British strategy. The British strategy was to cut off the Hudson River, and the point of doing that is it would isolate the New England states and cut them off from the Central American states. This ultimately failed and culminated in the Battle of Saratoga, where the American colonists beat the British in a huge series of victories. And this was really important because it proved to foreigners, the Europeans, the French, and the Spanish, that they could not only fight this war, but they could win this war. And so that led to Europeans coming to aid the American cause. And that's one of the things we're going to learn about today. So that's what we learned yesterday. So today, let me talk about the three stations real briefly. So I said we're going to have three stations, each with a different topic you're going to be learning about. And each station is going to have a different task. So your first station is going to be a research task. So what you're going to do is you're going to get to this station, and you're going to be using a computer that I have set up to research the reasons why the Europeans aided the Americans. Okay, we talked briefly yesterday that eventually they did aid the Americans, but why did they? Okay, so that's going to be a question you're going to have to address through your own research with your group. Your second station is going to be learning about the sea battles of the American Revolution. I'm going to have you watch a short video clip, and then I want you to talk amongst yourselves and your group to talk about the conditions and what impact those sea battles really had. Your last station is going to be about Valley Forge. Now, Valley Forge is a winter encampment of 1777 and 78 that really had terrible conditions. And the reason you're learning about Valley Forge is because a lot of times in history classes, war kind of gets romanticized. And if you learn about Valley Forge, about the starvation, about the people dying, the people having hardly any clothes, the bloody footprints in the snow, it kind of shatters that image. So you're going to actually read some original documents from people that were there, and then have a discussion within your group. So before you go off into your station, some of the things I want you to think about, I just want you to be paying attention to certain themes as you learn about these different topics, okay? One of the things I want you to think about specifically when you're researching the Europeans joining the American Revolution is asking yourself, could the Americans have won without their aid? And I know we haven't covered the whole war, and we're going to answer some of these questions in more depth, but I really want you to be thinking about that. Another theme I really want you to think about is the conditions, and this, like I said, will be you'll be reading some primary documents about Valley Forge. So think about the conditions. Kind of visualize what this experience would really be like. What was life like then? What did it feel like? What did war smell like? Really think about what it would have been like to be there, and I think after you read some of these, you'll have some better ideas. So those are some of the themes I want you to be paying attention to. So, real briefly, before you go off into your stations, I already broke you up into groups, and I don't want everyone just to get with their buddy. So I've kind of prearranged your groups with people that I think bring different abilities, different interests, different excitements to your group. I think it's going to create a real unique learning experience because everyone should be contributing to this. Now, for every station you go to, you are going to fill out what's called a describing wheel. It's just a real simple form where you put your topic in the middle, and then as a group, once you've learned, you fill out this describing wheel. Just tell me, what did you learn? You're going to be given a question at your station, and just go through and fill it out. And I want everyone to do that for every station. So every student will have 3, okay? This is another fun thing I wanted to show you. So I mentioned some primary documents. The Valley Forge, you've got a couple stories, and these are, you're going to read these in a minute. These are from people who are actually there, and one brief assignment from that station I wanted to show you was called, What Are They Saying? And this is kind of a fun, goofy assignment I want you to do after you fill out your describing wheel, where it's General George Washington talking to the Continental troops. And after visualizing and reading about the conditions, you can fill that in as a group, or feel free to have some fun with it as long as it's school appropriate. Just have some fun with that one. So I set up these different stations. You're learning different things. You're learning in different ways. So this should really hit on everybody. Everyone should excel in one section or the other. You're going to have 10 minutes per section. So in 30 minutes, we're going to be done, and then we're going to have a discussion. Okay? For your assessment, this is the final thing I'm going to talk about. You also get choices. I'm going to give you a couple choices because I know not everybody likes to do only one thing. So, at the end, everyone's going to turn in their describing wheel. Each student should have 3. Remember that. So for your assessment, you're going to get the option of either making a comic strip of life at Valley Forge, or standing up in front of the class, you could do it with a partner either, and giving a brief talk about the conditions in life in that encampment. So comic book strip or a brief talk. Or if neither of those appeal to you, you can choose to do a written assessment, and it's real brief. These are all easier assignments. You should get them done in 10 to 15 minutes. The written assignment is on page 189, and you're going to answer short essay questions, question 3 and 4. So don't give me, a page long per question. Don't give me a sentence either. I want 5 to 7 good sentences answering and addressing these questions. Okay, so I think we've covered about everything. I hope everyone has fun. We're going to discuss what we learned at your stations in 30 minutes. So let's get started.